I can't do a Jerry Seinfeld impression, but if I could, I would say something like, "What's the deal with Pop-Tarts?" We find that out in the new Netflix movie Unfrosted. Hey guys, Dan here. This is Dan Reviews It. Welcome to my movie review for the new Netflix movie Unfrosted, starring, co-written by, and directed by Jerry Seinfeld. There's a lot to unpack here. This is getting not the best reviews out there. Rotten Tomatoes, I think, has it at a 42% currently, as of this recording. So, but it's, a lot of people are talking about it. He's been on every single talk show. In fact, he even parodied how much he's been promoting this movie on SNL this week. So before we launch into the specifics of the movie and my thoughts on it, let me welcome you into Dan Reviews It. Thank you for finding this video. We do movie and TV reviews here, and just about every day I try to post something new. So there's always a lot going on here, a lot to check out. With that in mind, please consider subscribing, hit that notification bell, and hit the like button. And of course, comment below. All that stuff, of course, helps the channel out. And check out my Letterboxd as well. That's in the description. It's a great site for monitoring your movie reviews and movie watching. And you can make lists and all that kind of stuff. So my profile on Letterboxd is in the description below. All right, so like I said, there's a lot to unpack here with Unfrosted. This is Jerry Seinfeld's directorial debut. He co-wrote it with a few people, including his very, very long time partner and friend, Spike Therestein. He worked with him on The Seinfeld Show and many, many other things. Andy Robin, I think, goes back a ways with him as well. Barry Marder, not used to seeing his name, so I think he may be a newer collaborator. But Jerry Seinfeld, of course, stars in the film. And this really is a star-studded movie. I mean, just about every single character is somebody very famous. The stars, the main stars, are Seinfeld, Jim Gaffigan, and Melissa McCarthy, and I guess Amy Schumer. She's in there a lot as well. But I won't even go into some of the cameos and stuff because it's pretty wild. It's a whole movie of like, oh my God, oh, he got him, oh, this person's in it. So that's kind of fun to watch. So I'm not going to spoil any of that for you. But the general plot of the film is this is another in the long line of the business biopic. We've seen a lot of these in the last year and a half or so. BlackBerry, Air, the Flamin' Hot Cheetos movie, Tetris, all of that. But this is a passion project for Seinfeld. Obviously, breakfast and cereal specifically has been a huge part of his, stand-up routines for decades. And, of course, great to get Jim Gaffigan in the movie as well because he has, built his entire career basically around, food premises. And I like Jim Gaffigan a lot. I've seen him in concert doing stand-up. I have not seen many stand-up concerts, or I don't know if they're called concerts or whatever, but stand-up shows. But Jim Gaffigan is one of them, and he's always hilarious. So basically, this is about the race in 1963 between Kellogg's and Post to be the first on the scene to get the toaster pastry on shelves and flying off them. So Jerry Seinfeld and Gaffigan play members of the Kellogg's family. Jerry plays Bob Cabana, who's just an employee of Kellogg's, but Jim Gaffigan plays the head of Kellogg's, Edsel Kellogg III. And Melissa McCarthy plays a NASA scientist, Donna Stankowski, who joins up with the team, and Amy Schumer as Marjorie Post, the head of the rival cereal company Post. I will say one other person, because he's in the movie quite a bit too, and that's Hugh Grant. He plays Thurl Ravenscroft, who voiced Tony the Tiger. That is true. A lot of this movie is not true. It's like way out there fictional, but Thurl Ravenscroft, although he doesn't do a lot of the things he does in this movie, he was a real person. He voiced the Grinch, or the narrator or whatever in the How the Grinch Stole Christmas animated series in the 60s, and he was the voice of Tony the Tiger for a long, long time. So that part is real. There's snippets of reality here. For example, there really was a huge race between Kellogg's and Post to get the toaster pastry on store shelves, and Country Squares really was the post version of it. So there are little drips and drabs of reality in this, but this is a very, very outlandish movie, purposely. My friend actually compared it a little bit. He said it was like a worse version of the Weird Al Yankovic movie, where it's like there's some things that are a little bit real in there, but for the most part, it's just a wildly inaccurate and over the top telling of the story. So I think we get that here. All right, so boy, like I said, this has been kind of getting dragged by the critics. So I actually thought it was okay. I mean, I think it's pretty much what I was expecting. I did get a heavy amount of laughs from it. I really did. But overall, it is kind of a mess. It isn't sure exactly which kind of direction it wants to go in. Like at one point, it's trying to kind of skewer business culture, specifically of the 60s. There's like a Mad Men bit in there. And so that's like part of it. But then it's also skewering product lines and commercials of the 60s, which I guess is kind of businessy as well, but not really like the background stuff. But then you have the space race stuff as well, because they poach the Melissa McCarthy character from NASA. And so there's like, some stuff about the space race. And there's a lot of like 60s references. And look, Seinfeld is, I think he's 70. And so that's, my parents' age. They're 70, I think 73 and 74, or 72 and 74, something like that. But anyway, they're like right in that age range. They grew up in the 60s as teenagers. So I'm sure that a lot of this stuff would appeal to them. And it appeals to me on a certain level, just from watching old shows from the 60s and seeing old TV commercials and all of that kind of stuff. But part of the, like, I don't know, charm or whatever of a movie like this is just kind of having the punchlines be really funny. This is more like, oh, look at this actor, he's being funny. Or, like I saw one of the Seinfeld appearances lately was on Kimmel, and I watched that interview, and he told a really funny kind of setup about this movie. There's like a serial awards towards the beginning of the movie, and he was talking about it, and his telling of the scene was a lot funnier to me than the actual scene. I don't think it was because I had heard sort of the premise on Kimmel. I just thought, well, this is, I think, a better constructed scene in the writer's room, where they're kind of throwing ideas at each other and saying, oh, wouldn't it be funny if this? And then they sort of forgot to finish the joke or write the punchline or whatever. It's more of, okay, these are kind of funny premises, but where is it all going? And that's kind of how I felt about this movie. Like I said, I definitely laughed. There's some funny moments here, and a lot of the ideas are interesting. Like there's, like the January 6th send up. I thought that was funny. But a lot of it just isn't landing, and it's relying on certain elements of Seinfeld's stand-up career that are, like I said, decades old. I mean, he actually does one of his serial bits from probably the 80s in this movie. So for that, it's just like, what a kind of mess of a movie. But I did enjoy watching it, and it's funny. And for a free movie on Netflix, I think it's exactly kind of what Netflix should be doing. Their prestige pieces are fine too, obviously, that garner the Oscar nominations, but they spend so much time, spending money on like horrible sort of action comedies and that sort of thing with a big name attached. This is like every big name attached. And it kind of worked for me in that regard. I did think it might be a little funnier than it was. It was not. And it definitely reminded me what a horrible actor Jerry Seinfeld is. And look, I'm a huge fan. Seinfeld is one of my all-time favorite shows. I really love his stand-up. Now I understand he's maybe kind of a jerk in person or whatever. But he's got a lot of money. A lot of people are. But I'm wearing my Urban Sombrero shirt, from the original Seinfeld show. I'm a big fan, but the guy can't act. And that was sort of, I don't know if people sort of poked fun at that during the Seinfeld era, but it was so funny it like didn't matter kind of thing. And I feel he just was not, he was showcasing how much he cannot act in this movie. And it makes sense. I mean, look, he's a stand-up first and foremost. Secondly, I guess a host of comedians and Cards Getting Coffee, but an actor, distant, right? And in fact, the last like real acting he did was probably the voice work in the B movie 15, 16 years ago. So, and he's always just kind of playing himself. So it works in pieces here, but you really realize when he's next to, say, Melissa McCarthy, who is certainly funny, but is also a very competent actress, just how much he pales. A lot of the other people in the movie are more on his level. Like Gaffigan, he's very funny stand up, but he's a subpar actor, right? So there's moments where I'm like, okay, he can hang with this person, but then when we start introducing some of these A-listers in the cameos, you realize just how bad of an actor Jerry is. Also, the directing, he's the first time director here. Don't think that was great either. I won't dwell on that too much because I think I hit on some of the reasons why the movie's just sort of unfocused and some of that. So I think he might have wanted to hand off the directing to somebody else. But look, overall, I think this is certainly for a free watch on Netflix. Everybody's talking about it. Maybe most in the most not positive light. But I thought it was at least worth a watch. So I will leave Unfrosted with a C plus. I think it's a perfectly adequate movie. It could have been certainly a lot better. But all right, thank you for watching Dan Reviews It. We'll see you next time.